Harrow Bangkok and Harrow London, besides Harrow Bangkok being co-ed?
Well, having just arrived today, I would say the temperature is different, definitely. It's been raining and it's been very cold since the start of term in Harrow in London. And so that's one obvious thing. And actually, one notices the differences also in the foliage and the style of architecture and those sorts of things. So the schools look quite different. The major difference is, yes, the coeducation and also the fact that Harrow in London is full boarding. So every single pupil, every single boy lives in a boarding house. Even if they're the son of a teacher, they're in a full boarding house the whole time.
What has impressed you most about Harrow Bangkok?
I think the people. Everyone's so friendly and welcoming. And I think that's really striking, actually. Maybe I don't think I get special treatment. I sense that that you're friendly to one another anyway. Is that true?
I hope so.
Yeah, absolutely. So no, that really impresses me, and there's a great sense of fun and energy about this school.
What do you think is the most important quality a leader should have?
Very good question. It's difficult to pick out just one quality, but I think one thing that one learns the more you look at high quality leadership, it's understanding others and wanting to serve others, I think is one of the most important strengths. You look at any of the great leaders connected with Harrow, the likes of Winston Churchill, Nehru, Shaftesbury, people like that, they all fundamentally were willing to make sacrifices and were willing to work extremely hard to make other people's lives better.
How, in your opinion, could we improve as a school?
Do you mean Harrow in Bangkok or all of the Harrow family?
Harrow in Bangkok.
Improve as a school, that's really putting me on the spot. It's a bit difficult for a visitor to understand all of the issues you're dealing with. I'll have to think about that one.
What has been your proudest moment so far in life?
Proudest moment in life. I can think of several things. It may be an obvious thing to say, but actually I'm very proud of my family, my wife and daughter. I think they're a very important part of my life. I'm also very proud when, in a school context, when I see the pupils doing well, and I'm very proud when I see them treating one another positively and respectfully. Those are very proud moments.
What is the best thing about being the headmaster of Harrow School?
The best thing about being headmaster, generally speaking, it's having the responsibility for lots of young people's education. That's the best thing about it, because that's so important. There are a lot of fun times being a headmaster. You go to lots of exciting events. You get to visit members of the Harrow family like this, and you also get to see lots of talented people doing what they're really good at. So you go to wonderful concerts, you see fantastic performances on the sports field, you see some very bright young people doing well academically. Those are all very enjoyable.
How do you expect Harrow students to behave?
Respectfully. Again, it relates to one's attitude towards other people. I expect people to be understanding of others' needs, also to be showing commitment, showing an appreciation of their opportunities, because all of the pupils in the Harrow schools have a great privilege, a wonderful education, and I like to see pupils that understand that and take advantage of it.
As headmaster of Harrow UK, what plans do you have on making the school?
In London, the school, the main things we're working on at the moment, educationally speaking, we are working on the way that we teach and we learn. So not just focusing on examination results, but making sure that the learning that goes on is about learning for life. It's about loving to read and research and to question and debate things. That's one main area. The other area we're improving is our advice and preparation for universities. So, like here, our pupils go on to universities in the UK and all around the world. We've got to make sure they're really well advised. And the other area is about our partnership work, our charitable work, and we're describing that as Shaftesbury Enterprise, after Lord Shaftesbury, who was an amazing philanthropist in the 19th century. And so we're developing our community service, our partnership work, and our charity work.
How can students help in contributing to this?
How can students
help to contribute to this?
Well, in lots of ways, by being very committed towards their activities, but also expressing their opinions. At Harrow in London, we have the weekly school newspaper, the Harrowonian, where lots of the boys write articles. Do you have something like that here?
Yes, but
Yes.
it's released once a month.
Once a month. Okay, well our weekly edition has lots of opinion and articles and letters, and there are opportunities for the pupils to express their views about how the school could be better.
Why did you choose to become a teacher, and have you ever considered a different career?
At the time, I'd studied mathematics at university. I also loved sport. I loved to play rugby and to row were my main sports. And when a job came up at a boarding school, it wasn't Harrow, it was actually Bradley College in Oxfordshire, which involved teaching mathematics, coaching sport, and living in a boarding house, I thought that sounds fantastic. So I went and gave that a try, and I've stuck with it ever since. And you asked, have I ever considered something else? Once or twice, but not terribly seriously, because I've always enjoyed teaching, and felt that I wanted to continue my teaching career.
Last year, I played in the joint Harrow Bangkok and Harrow London East Meets West concert.
Ah, yes, good.
Are there any other events that you think both Harrows can cooperate?
Yes, and we've got one coming up this summer where the year 11 pupils, I think 10 pupils from each of the schools in the Harrow family, so that's Harrow Bangkok, Beijing, Hong Kong, the John Lyons School and Harrow School. 10 pupils from each of the schools are coming together to Harrow London for a conference after their GCSE exams. And that'll be a really good joint initiative. They'll be thinking about university preparation and qualities of leadership, and we're looking forward to that. I think we'll also have future music tours and possibly sport as well. Maybe one or two exchanges in the future, we'll see.
What features does Harrow UK have that are distinct from other schools in the UK and all over the world?
Well, partly Harrow dress and uniform, the hats which you have here, which are worn every day at Harrow in London. We also have traditions which other schools don't have. Harrow songs. Do you have Harrow songs here a bit, or not? A few. We sing them a lot at Harrow in London, songs like 40 Years On and so on. So that's another tradition. And I would say the all-boys full boarding environment, it isn't unique, but there are only very few schools that do that now in the UK. There are 3 or 4 schools only.
Harrow is one of the oldest and most famous schools in Britain. How would you like Harrow to be recognized all over the world, and how would you do that?
Yeah, I think this really ties in with the motto over here, leadership for a better world, is that first and foremost, I hope that Harrow is recognised as a school that produces great leaders, people who influence the world positively, who are leaders in their fields, whatever that field may be, and that people recognise that the people that come out of Harrow are admirable human beings.
Out of curiosity, who is Custis and what does he do that?
Custis, yeah, he is. He's not a teacher. He is a member of staff at Harrow, and what his job is to make sure that the place is well organised. Is that finished?
Yeah.
Okay. Shall I wait?
Just go with your answer.
Okay. So Custis, he's a member of the school's staff. He's not a teacher, but his job is to make sure that the place is orderly, that the boys are tidy. He will stop them on the street and they'll be put on the Custis report. If they're scruffy, their shirt's hanging out, or they're not wearing a hat, or their hat's damaged, or the tie isn't done up properly, and they'll have to report to Custis early in the morning before breakfast, and as a sort of punishment, but also so he can review their dress. And any of the Harrow teachers can put a boy on Custis report if they're not smart and behaving themselves properly. But he does all sorts of other things. He makes sure that the chapel services happen properly, that speech room is well organised, and he's got a team of cleaners and caretakers that look after the school site.
What are your thoughts on coeducation?
Coeducation, yeah, it's interesting. I've taught at different kinds of schools in my career. Coeducational schools, single-sex schools. I've taught all boys classes, all girls classes, and mixed classes. I actually do not believe that there is just one way of educating young people. I think there are great schools of those different kinds. It so happens that here is a wonderful coeducational school, and the school in London, Harrow School, where I'm headmaster, its tradition is an all-male environment, or running one. So there are differences, there are clear differences, and I think there are pros and cons about the different kinds of schools. Coeducational schools, I think there's this huge advantage of boys and girls growing up forming natural sorts of relationships and friendships and understanding matters relating to gender and how boys and girls and men and women relate to one another. I think that's a very natural part of a coeducational education. On the other hand, in a single-sex school, arguably, you can prolong childhood for a bit longer. You know, boys stay boys for longer, girls stay girls for longer, because they are just focusing on their studies, their activities. And for example, at Harrow, boys are acting in plays, sometimes female parts, because there are no girls there, and they do that, and they have no problem at all with doing that. And also, arguably, boys in an all-boys environment are more willing to express themselves in feminine ways, you know, writing poetry, sort of showing perhaps the more sensitive side of their character. Some people argue that in a coeducational school it's just a little bit harder to do that because you might be a little self-conscious. But on the other hand, I think there are social advantages to coeducation. So I think there are great schools of both kinds.
Is there a chance it will change to coeducation?
Not in the immediate future at Harrow. Will Harrow always be all boys? Who knows? I mean, in 100 years' time, will there be any single-sex schools? It's difficult to tell. But as far as I can predict, Harrow will remain all boys for the foreseeable future.
Are you going to be part of the Harrow exchange program next year?
Which Harrow? The one involving the John Lyons School? Not that program, no. What we're doing is we're kicking things off with this Year 11 conference this coming summer. And we're also exploring ideas that we talked about before, about maybe music events and working on certain things together. Maybe in the future some work experience programs, we could look at that. But we're not against the idea of an exchange, but it's quite difficult to see how it would work with a full boarding environment, quite in the way that it does with the John Lyons School.
Are there any women in leadership positions at the staff?
Not yet. There will be in the future, I'm sure. That it's only fairly recently that Harrow in London has employed women teachers. We now have some of our most successful beaks, as we call them, are female. And I'm sure that in time we will have female housemasters and members of the management team.
I have heard that the prefects at Harrow London carry canes. Is this true?
Yes, on special occasions they wear top hats and carry canes, and they of course have their, on special occasions, all the boys wear their tailcoats and so on. So
Yes, they're quite an unusual sight.
Sure. What is the biggest problem about new students arriving that you have encountered so far over the years?
The biggest problem with new students
As
arriving?
in year 9s?
Yeah, I suppose inevitably the toughest thing, and it usually only lasts a few days or just a couple of weeks, is feelings of homesickness, particularly for the boys that haven't boarded before. And even for those that have, of course, you're arriving in a school where it's just bigger than everything you've seen before. They may have been at a little prep school with, say, 150 pupils in it, and they arrive in a school of 830. They're in a boarding house, and these big 17 and 18-year-olds all around. It's quite different for them. They also have to get themselves very organised, because Harrow School in London is spread out like a village. And you have to walk from one place to another, carrying your books and so on. You have to get organised pretty quickly. Okay, any more questions?
Say thank you, Ian.
No, it's a pleasure. Thank you. Very stimulating questions. Thank you for putting thought into those.